What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Daily Groomer podcast. I'm your host, Alex Martin, and today I'm sitting down with a newish grooming business owner named Alicia Divito, who owns Tidy Tails to Go. It's a 3-van mobile operation up in northern Connecticut. Guys, she started back in 2022, and I'm really excited for this episode. We're going to talk all things positive and calming presence. How to grow your business while maintaining such a positive and calming presence. And I'm really excited to even learn a little bit about Alicia's story because she only started in 2022 and here she is at 3-van. So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Honestly, I'm just super excited to learn more about you and how you built your business since we got going. So let's just start way back in the beginning. It's 2022. What made you kind of hop in and pick up grooming? Were you already grooming when you started Tidy Tails to Go, or was it brand new?
Sweet. Well, thank you, Alex. I really appreciate being here. I'm super honored as I listen to all of your podcasts. Yeah, so I started in 2020 actually grooming. So not even that long in the grooming industry. I came, and it was the end of 2020, November-ish. I came back to Connecticut. I was living in Hawaii actually during COVID, like right before COVID happened for a couple years. I absolutely loved it. And then COVID happened and everything got shut down and I was cleaning houses and, me and my boyfriend at the time were like, maybe we need to do another adventure. Maybe we need to move closer to home. And, so we tackled getting off the island and road tripped all the way across the country from Los Angeles back to Connecticut.
Man, that's far.
Yeah.
Coast, literally.
Yeah, no, it was really, really cool. But I got back home. It was like July of, right in COVID, July of 2020. And I was like, all right, I'm home. I'm back at my parents' house. And I freaked out. I totally freaked out. I started having panic attacks and I couldn't drive my car. So I would get in my car and I would have a full-blown panic attack. And I was like, I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything. I love to travel and I love to, be a free spirit and do different kinds of jobs. And I was working in restaurants and stuff. And I was like, oh man, I'm living with my parents and having a mental crisis. And what am I going to do? So I would do practice drives on my car. And so I kept a 10-mile radius around my house. And I only looked for jobs in a 10-mile radius because I was like, oh man, if I can't get to work or if I, have an anxiety attack at work, I've never had a panic attack before. And feels like a heart attack, you just can't function. And I was like, what if I wake up one morning and I can't get to work? And I have a super strong work ethic. So I was like, this is crazy,
Gosh, what do you think prompted all that?
I think big life change, it was like COVID and then moving. I hadn't lived with my parents in 10 years. I went to college and I traveled around and did a bunch of crazy adventures. And I was like, oh, I don't know what's next. Just the uncertainty of not knowing what's next was really kind of frightening. And, yeah. Oh yeah. And then the physicalness was crippling. I was like, man, I can't do anything. So, definitely just huge changes. It was totally reasonable, but I'm the type of person that likes to hit things head on. And I was like, I can't not do anything. If I just give in to these feelings, I'm going to be miserable, but I also have to find a job or, something that is low stress and that I can just feel good at, So yeah, I was driving around. I looked on Indeed a couple places and, a receptionist at a grooming salon came up and I didn't even I didn't apply for the job. I didn't anything. I just, I drove my car around and how a lot of salons have the big windows.
Oh yeah.
So I drove, yep. I drove my total beater car up to the salon and parked right in front of the windows and all 4 groomers inside were staring at me because it was end of day.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh shoot, who's this person coming? So
they're thinking you're bringing in the worst, most
I
maddest
know,
dog
right?
possible. Has never
Yep,
seen a
they
groomer.
were worried for sure. But I was like, if I go home and apply now and then come back for an interview in my car, it's going to be weird, you know? So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to introduce myself. And I did. And it was so funny because the owner was there and she was like, you know, we were supposed to have a receptionist start today. We had went through the whole interview process and she no-showed. So let's walk around and like show you. And she hired me on the spot and was like, okay, you want to start tomorrow? And yeah, she was amazing, you know, just like taught me the ropes. So I receptionist for a while, learning
Yeah.
everything I could.
Well,
That was
so
a
when you
great.
when you took it, when you took the job, were you in a headspace of like, okay, I think pets, like being around animals all day is going to be really good for me? Or was it, or were we not even there yet? Was it more so just like, this job is within my 10-mile radius. It's a job. I'm going to do it. And I haven't even looked at the fact that there's like dogs here.
No, I mean, I always really like working with dogs. I did like some house sitting things like a long time ago. I rented out a house and did like dog sitting and stuff. So I like, and I knew that they were like, it's calming for me to be around them. And I know that space of customer service. So I was like, it's a good fit for me too. It's definitely felt like that. But
Nice. Okay. So you
yeah,
started out working the front desk. What did that look like at, what was the name of the salon? We can give them a little shout out. It's your first name.
creative clips.
Creative Clips. Creative
Yeah.
Clips.
So
Was
not
it
too far off from Tiny Tails. But
awesome? Awesome. Was it in
creative clips.
Enfield?
Suffield, Connecticut.
Okay. Okay. Cool. All
Yeah.
right. Well, if you guys are listening, shout out Creative Clips. All right. So
Right.
you're working as a receptionist at Creative Clips. What was that
Mhm.
like? Was that, chaos? Was it pretty, calming and
No.
controlled?
Yeah, it was great. And the owner was amazing. She like I have all these different hobbies and things. So like I walked in there and she had like an old school wallpaper banner on the ceiling with like the little puppies and kittens and it was like baby pink. And I was like, oh, this reception area needs like an overhaul. So I spent like nights and weekends over there painting walls and redoing molding and like
Gosh, they loved you.
getting it.
They probably loved
Yeah,
you.
she was remarkable though. She was like, this is great. It's nice to have someone with like a new energy, like refreshing the space. And she let me do basically whatever I wanted. So it was a really nice like precursor to having my own business. And like she
That's
really
amazing.
yeah, was very supportive and
Okay.
um
So two things. One, you realized at that point, you realized before that point that you wanted to be your own business owner.
I've always wanted to be my own business owner. I went to college and got a degree in business admin. And so I always knew like, and I've tried like a multiple, like I
Yeah.
did house cleaning in Hawaii and I tried
Okay,
to like
nice.
set up a website and things like
Yeah.
that. And when I got back, I was like, oh, I can do house cleaning here.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to charge too much for my house cleaning services and everybody's like, you're ridiculous. And I was like, well, I made that in Hawaii. So why
Hey,
can't I make it here?
I mean, I also would rather have you overcharge than undercharge, right? I mean, especially
Yeah.
in this spot. But okay, so you knew you wanted to be your own business owner. Working around pets, that was like a good kind of calming reliever, and it was within the 10-mile radius. So check, and
Mhm.
check.
Yep.
What made you take a leap of faith and step into the lion's den that we call becoming a bather?
Yeah, I got thrown into it. I want to say that like my salon that I started at was perfect. There were four grooming tables, so three other groomers and the owner, who was also a groomer. And it was awesome. So I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna bathe dogs, but then like to learn nail trims, I would go and do each of their dogs' nail trims. And to do sanitaries, I'd go to each of their tables and I would do the sanitary on every single dog they had and the paw pads. Like I learned so fast because I had this like conveyor belt system of doing every part of the process on each of their dogs. So 5 dogs a day, I'm doing 5 nail trims,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, for each of them. So it was just like it was a grind, but definitely worth it. Like what a great way to learn and just like throw yourself into it. And each groomer had their own ways of teaching me things. So it was like, oh, hold the paw like this when you shave a paw pad, or
Yeah.
here, try the nails like this. And so it was just a really good, like comprehensive way to learn, which if I ever opened up a school or like a stand brick and mortar salon, I would try and set up the same type of thing to show people, because I'm like, wow, that's so cool if you have the drive to like do that many.
Yeah, it
I
was
think
kind of
it's
like
really cool.
you were in a sort of, apprentice style program without
Hmm.
knowing it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So really thrown into it, but I thought it was, it was great. Every part of it, I was like, oh, this is great. And with my anxiety and stuff, I would, get in there in the morning. I would be like, let me get my hands on a dog, like first thing, so it was
So did
nice.
you notice it then when you made that transition over to start learning that the job was starting to ease your anxiety? Was that kind of that first point that you started realizing that?
100%. Yeah. And I had those days where I was like, I need to get my hands on a dog. Like I need to be in the tub space for a minute and just be with a dog, because I can feel all of that like emotion and that stress like building up in me. I can wake up in the morning and feel like that, and there's two options, right? I can roll over in bed and not do it, or I can go to work and I can put my hands on a dog and give him a massage in the tub, and that will make me feel better. So
What
that's kind of my cornerstone.
I know it's like hard to encapsulate and like put into words, but like, what do you think it is about it? Do you think it's like just that there's not another human there? Do you think it's like you have this like loving, being next to you? Like, what is it that makes it like, makes you get out of bed and like, kind of drive through a panic attack to get to work because it's just going to make you feel better?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we all know as like pet lovers, like dogs just have a way of, and sometimes people for cats and stuff. I'm not one of those people, but like dogs have a way of, making us just feel okay. And like, even if they're having like a really stressful time or whatever, you can try and ease that. I think that has a lot to do with it too, is like if you give them that calm energy, they'll give it back to you most of the time, or you can at least help ease their anxiety in the situation. And I think that like method of helping the dog, is just easier for me. Some people can do that by helping other people and stuff. And I think dogs just, they're like my avenue for reducing stress and,
For sure. So like,
uh,
I feel like a bunch of groomers out there are probably shaking their heads. Because like, I mean, obviously anyone, I mean, whether you're a groomer or not, even being in the presence of a dog, I feel like is definitely a stress reliever.
mhm.
But then you take the step and you start your own business, which is the very opposite of a stress reliever. And
Yeah.
so walk me through that journey a little bit in how you built up, let's call it like built back up yourself, from this Hawaii high down to this kind of like anxiety ridden back home kind of state, back up to that, confidence that you knew before to like step out and start your own business.
Yeah. Well, I think that like a lot of the confidence and stuff comes just from, or a lot of the strength comes from being ambitious and like trying, like putting yourself out there makes you feel more empowered, right? So I think that was more of my thing too, is like, okay, I'm learning everything. I feel like I need to push myself, and it's, take on this challenge. And it's all about knowing your circles, right? Of like comfort level and your comfort zone and stuff. And like, one of the things I wanted to mention was that like having a support system, and I just went to Groom Expo and one of the speakers there was talking the same thing. Like you got to have your person, like you got to have somebody. And actually it was kind of my beef going in as a business owner. I was like, like I listen to all these podcasts, I talk to all these people, and it's like husband, wife, duos, or like, they have each other all the time. They get to talk about this stuff. And I'm like, I have a great support system, but they have like those people. And so I've started to comprehensively look at like my support system. And, my parents have been incredible. My dad, the mechanic, so that's already a leg up in the mobile world. um, my mom sews all of my bandanas, which is like a huge, like
That's awesome.
it's our time to connect. And,
Yeah.
we're making dog bandanas and hitting Joanne fabrics every week or whatever. Um,
That's awesome.
and yeah. And, so I think just having like super critical support systems is helpful too. Like if you're putting yourself in a challenging place to try and start something new, knowing that like you have people to back you if stuff starts to slip, and it is one of my fears. Like I fear it almost every week where I'm like, oh my God, tomorrow I could wake up and be panic ridden again, and I could fall back in that hole. And it's, I have to keep pushing myself to keep thinking about my future goals so I can stay out of that vibe, like to kind of get away from that kind of negative thinking.
No, I love that. I mean, starting a business with a support system almost sounds like a cheat code because you've got immediate fans sitting there rooting for you. I mean, in your case, you had like two critical functions,
Yeah.
mechanic and a buddy for bandanas right there out the gate. But I do love what you're saying about setting goals, and I think that's important. Yet, like equally just as hard to do once you're starting out. And you said you listen to podcasts, you're an avid listener of our podcast, and read books, gone to the shows. When you look to set goals, right when you set out, what did those look like? Like take us back to 2022 when you're starting Tidy Tales. Like, was it just like, hey, I'm just trying to work like a balanced lifestyle, make some money on the side,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really what it was. It was like, it was all about, and I still have to catch myself on the balance. Like, like you really like having that work life kind of thing. And I'm 100% a workaholic at heart. Like, I'm like, I love what I do. I want to do it all the time, but I also love my vacations and I love my time off, and having a minute to like detach is so important. But yeah, like I think building the goals is so hard, and then like holding yourself to them. So I always try and do things like, like shoot low. I guess that's not what you're supposed to do, but I think that's what my brain like wants to do. Cause then it's like, oh, when you like surpass,
you want to cross them
somebody
off.
milestones. Yeah, it feels good. So yeah, make to-do lists very often and cross everything off because it feels really good. That's what it takes.
No, I love that. Sometimes too, I'm like a big to-do lister. Sometimes I forget to add something to my to-do list, but I want that feeling of crossing it off. So I'll add it right after I finish it and then just cross it off.
Yeah, but you need the little wins, I think that's the hardest thing. Like when you are a new business owner, you have these people cheering you and all this stuff, but like you need to have those little wins almost every day so that you don't get overwhelmed by it, and like be realistic about your goals. I think that's got me a lot of times where I'm like, wow, my entrepreneurship is running off wild, and I just need to like hone in on what I'm trying to do and like stay focused and not. I'm terrible at boundaries. I'm trying to get better at them, but like not compromise on like what are the big ticket things, like what is really important to me that I want. And if my business is pivoting in a way that's like not doing that, and I think it's constantly like checking that, because you can start to pivot really fast on like what you're going to do and how you're going to act. And like if you do that, then I feel like the risk of failure is just so high, and like detrimental failure, it's just
I mean,
like
you start getting distracted by, other shiny objects, right? I want you to practicalize, some of these bigger goals for us. And like this, you keep referring to like things that are important to you. Can you give us some examples of yours that might be able to like, spark some thoughts in other people's heads?
yeah. So definitely, I just went to a speaker at Groom Expo, so I'm kind of steal a little bit of her stuff,
Yeah.
but it was so good. Because she was talking about goals and how like we're kind of, kind of afraid to dream a little bit. Like we're afraid. So I came home and I was like thinking about it, and I was like, maybe I don't want some giant operation because that's never really been my thing. But like a smaller operation that is really doing everything really well, like what we do, doing it well, and trying to stay focused on that is super important. And how we as business owners, like she had mentioned, that we as business owners can really become bottlenecks in the growth of our own business, because like, I've grown so fast, just speaking to my own experience. Like when I bought my first van in 2022, so I bought it in February, and I actually kept working at my salon during the day, and I ran my van at night doing a couple dogs
Oh my
in the
gosh.
afternoons. Yeah, all the way
Crazy.
until November, until about Thanksgiving. And then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go off and do my own thing. And it wasn't, I was getting tons of calls. I was just like, I'm not ready to like officially leave.
Do you think
And
it was a confidence thing, or do you think like did you not believe in yourself that you were ready, or were you truly still trying to learn some experiences before you headed out?
it was more like I told my current boss I would be there for a couple of years and I didn't want to bail. I felt bad. But also, I mean, I think the more time that you take to learn with the people around you is super helpful. And, self-taught groomer, or, taught by the people around me and watching videos and all that kind of stuff. So I think like definitely, the big things with mobile is like, what happens if you accidentally cut a dog, or like, what happens if the dog has a seizure? You're all by yourself. Like those were the kind of big things that I was like, I'm nervous. Like, I don't know how to do that kind of thing. So I think that piece of it was definitely like the confidence.
It's so funny, and maybe it's not funny, but like it's just like taking a step back. It's like that. Typically, people are worried about like the back office stuff. Like, I don't know how to like, what do I do about taxes? What do I do about marketing? How do I like finance a van? That sort of stuff. And it's like you probably weren't even sweating that. You already had your van, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you were gung ho on that side. It was more so like,
Yeah.
okay, I just want to get more experience when it actually comes to pause on the table, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is just it's flip flop of most people's journey. But anyways, I want to return back to like, because you did mention scaling quickly. And like at some points too, with all new business owners, you do get a little bit in over your skis in terms of like, that ambition kicks in, right? And ambition's good, right?
Yeah.
And it's good to like push ourselves, but sometimes it pushes us a little bit over our skis and we get a little bit distracted on like some things that may have been important to us when we started out. And I know like when you started out, maintaining that like work-life balance and like the anxiety relief and like that sort of stuff was, and probably still is today, important to you. How did you maintain those high qualities and keep that bar high for, making sure that like your anxiety is controlled and making sure that, your days aren't running, till midnight. Once you started scaling, once you started adding more people and more chaos to the mix.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely like daily checks and balances, which sounds even more exhausting, I think. But like having, like, don't get me wrong, I'm making mistakes every single day, and just kind of keeping myself recognizing that mistakes happen, and there's no, reminding myself that there's no, like, I'm not stuck in concrete, like I can pivot and morph and change, and like reminding myself of those goals. Like I have things in my van that are like reminding myself what I'm there to do. Like, I have to, and I sit down with my two groomers that I have too, and I'm like, how are you feeling today? Like what's going on in your life? Like, how have your dogs been this week? Like something I constantly do is I'm like, wow, my dogs were like off today. They were off today. And then like I'll sit and I'll look in the mirror and I'll be like, I'm off today. I know it, and they can feel it and I can feel it. And if I have too many of those days in a row, I'm like, I got to take a day off, and like really respecting yourself on those kinds of things. And that's kind of like one of the struggles that I'm going through now is like one of my biggest values as an employer and a boss is the flexibility of mobile, like being able to say, we go out and do 5 or 6 dogs a day, but if I wake up one day and my heart is like hurting and I'm not in it, to have the ability to explain that. And we build our client relationships to be strong enough to be able to be like, listen, we need to have an emotional support day today, and like,
Yeah.
just holding that as a true value of like, we're all just humans, we're all just doing our things. There's some days that you might not want your dog in a van with me because I'm a basket case, and just being like, being more open about that, like and I do know it, and it's hard for me sometimes too. Like sometimes it is easier to blame a breakdown on the van than it is to talk about some of the things that we deal with. But some of my good clients that I've had since 2022 when I was working nights, I can tell them like, listen, today's not my day. And they totally understand. They're freaking phenomenal. So
That's awesome. I was just about to ask how you talk to them about that, because I can imagine like it's hard to, to us when you and I are talking, and even like, to other mobile groomers out there, it might make like perfect sense in our ears when we're like, hey, you're having an off day. Like your dogs probably aren't going to cooperate because they can sense that energy. But I can imagine sometimes that might be a struggle to get across to a client who just wants to pay to groom their dog. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is, I mean, it's really a balance there too, right? Like you have to like I know that my clients will understand, but I also know I have a really strong work ethic. And like when I'm bringing employees into my business, I'm trying to like lead by example and show them that like, you can't use it as a cop out. You can't use it as because you went out and partied last night and you can't work today type of deal. Like you have to be genuine in your interactions with people. And it does take time to like build up. Like I said, I have used the excuse the van's broken down, it happens, whatever. But I think that the more that we can get people, especially in our industry, like get clients and get the groomers and everybody to just kind of be more on the same page about the the essence of being human and what we're capable of in a certain day or time frame is like more my goal. That's what I hope to like. I don't know.
No, I think you're right. And I think the industry is trending that way. Right. And that's why, it's eerily apparent when we talk about price and like charging your worth, but like, I feel like that should flow into everything you do as a groomer, and especially as a mobile grooming, person where you're in a van all day by yourself. It's like, it's not just your price should reflect your value, but you having control of your schedule and your flexibility and like your client relationships and all of that sort of stuff. You should be able to set boundaries and respect yourself, because at the end of the day, we are just humans. I had a question on my list that I wanted to ask you earlier, and maybe we've already kind of talked about it, but I'm curious, being so new to it, and trying to almost drink out of a fire hose when it comes to learning and being self-taught. What do you think is the hardest part of being a new grooming business owner?
I think probably the confidence piece. Like I had a lot of different experience. I had a great mentor from someone else down in Southern Connecticut. I met her at like a dog fair thing, and she was like, "Oh, you got to go mobile." Super, super helpful in so many different aspects. And not, if she listens to this, no shade on her, because it was a great moment, but I listened to all these things and did a lot of research, and I worked in Hawaii. So my threshold for wanting to be paid a certain amount was high. But I started my prices out really high because that's what everybody was like, and she was sending me a bunch of people. And she asked me one day, like, what my prices were. And she was like, don't you think your prices are a little high? You don't have a new van and you're like new to grooming. And I was like kind of a little bit devastated. But it was helpful, and I think I lowered my price for like a month, but not by very much. And then I shot it right back. I was like, you know what? No, like it is my value. And, there, you get so much advice from different things. I know it's like, everybody's like, get off Facebook. Facebook is, there's so many helpful resources just to hear from like other people. But building your own confidence to kind of like make it happen. And, everybody struggles feeling like they don't belong in some way or the other. And I think for a little while I was like, I'm not a groomer and I'm not really a business owner. So I didn't really fit into either of them.
I was going to ask you if you ever felt like a little bit of imposter syndrome.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, there's so many people that probably groom way better than me. But then I think to my connection with the dogs and like what I'm offering, like what service am I offering? Like maybe it's not the perfect haircut, but I know that your dog is comfortable, clean, and happy when it leaves my van. And that's all I aim to do. Like I just want them to be having a good time. And I want to be able to, even lately, I'm like, I could be better at talking to clients about, getting on a more regular routine with their dog. So it doesn't have, like it's 6 months of shedding hair that like needs to be removed, or or the matted, the people that have doodles. And I'm like, I need to actively work on like education for my clients, because that's important. And like, it's a part of being a professional in the industry, that even though I'm a new professional, I'm going to all the shows, I'm getting the information, I have the information, I just need to get more confident sharing it. So
What do you think holds back the confidence in sharing it? Like that they don't deem you as an expert?
yeah, maybe. I mean, they do. They
I
definitely
mean, they do.
respect
You
everything
know a
I
lot more
say.
than they do. You know?
Yeah. I just think it's like, I feel like it should have been more prep, because we don't go, well, some people do go to grooming school and stuff, but like we were
Sure.
talking about earlier, like there's not like a set trajectory for our
Mhm.
industry. And like, I don't know what kind of percentage, but how many people just fall into grooming like I did? Like, I feel
Mhm.
like it's so much more common to have people that were like, yeah, I wasn't planning on being a groomer, but PetSmart had a sign-on bonus, and like, why not?
Yeah.
Or whatever. But
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, especially like, whether we believe it or not, hearing all of the different opinions on Facebook can be pretty hard to like be confident that in your own opinion. It can be pretty hard to be
mhm.
confident in picking one, right? Because you've
Yeah.
got people telling you different things and all sorts of stuff. So I definitely hear that. And
Mhm.
honestly, it's pretty impressive to build what you have. And I love the fact that you're relatable, like that it hasn't been, extremely easy. And like the self-doubt is still there in some cases. And that's okay, it seems, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious what you do. I know you shared like some of the aspirational stuff you do at night or maybe in the morning in the mirror where you're saying, hey, I was off today. Um, do you have any other of those like daily or weekly habits that you can share that kind of like recenter you?
Yeah, I mean, I think like mindfulness is huge in my life, of like really trying to just kind of listen. And I mean, mobile is great because we drive around in silence if you're not listening to podcasts or audiobooks or anything.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, just like really, mindfully checking in with yourself. And, there's like different yoga practices and things like that that I think like, yeah, and actually my boyfriend's been getting me into running. Not a bad, not a
Yeah.
bad, but like exercise. And so many times it's at my salon, we never used to eat lunch. I'm still terrible at my eating habits during the day, but like just those simple things of like making sure you're taking care of yourself so that you can bring your best self every day. um and I think definitely checking in with my groomers often is so important, like just being like, hey, how you feeling? Or I now we have a group message, so I'll like shoot a
Right.
messages in the morning and be like, hey, how you doing? And not only is it like a reminder to them to try and be their best selves, it's like a reminder to me to like put myself forward to represent our business the way that I want it to be represented. And but
Yeah, I like that. The little moments of mindfulness to just like reflect on how you're doing. That's definitely important and can definitely get thrown by the wayside, as
mhm.
you're on dog 5 of the day and
Yeah.
you want to get home, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely taken. What I found is if you just take like honestly 30 seconds while the dog is in your van to just let them like roam around the floor and sniff and just sit down with them, it's like one of my favorite things to do. I feel like my dogs get so much calmer in just like that 30, it doesn't even have to be long, just like 30 seconds, or like bringing them up on the table and just like giving them a good scratch before we like even get into it. I'm like, that's what it is, it's perfect.
yeah, no, I love that. I love that. I always say too, it's like remember to play with the dogs, right? It's like it's so
Mhm.
silly and it's so simple, but it's like the deeper we get into our careers as groomers, like the more you just kind of like get into like routine robotic habit of like, all right, pick up the dog, you know what I mean? Like it's like
Yeah, yeah.
you lose that like initial awe and wonder. And like remember how you
Mhm.
were talking about it at at the first salon when you just run your fingers through them and just that alone, like that first movement was like stress relieving and anxiety
Yep.
relieving. It's like
Yeah.
remembering to do those and just like actually enjoy the process while you're at it.
Yeah, I really think it could help with like burnout and like things that a lot of groomers are facing. It's just like and then cutting down on how many dogs you do a day or whatever. Raise your prices, cut down on the dogs, so it's not so bad. But
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. For sure. Definitely hard to work when you're not energized, and the dogs can feel that too.
Hmm.
Well, cool. Well,
Yeah.
Alicia, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate you sharing all this stuff. I know that like I've heard personally other people in the community reach out about imposter syndrome and about anxiety and stuff like that. So I appreciate you being so honest about all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to help.
Cool. Thanks so much. I want to give you a chance to shout out, where people can find you, whether that's website, Instagram page, etc. I know I want to give a shout out to your frequently asked questions section on your website. I know it's so goofy, but guys, check out her FAQ section on the website. It is really nice and it's really cool, super transparent, and pretty much any question that a pet owner would ask about mobile grooming. And it's just awesome. I was telling people before, I'm like, I was telling Alicia before, if anyone's going to ask me about an FAQ section to copy, I'm going to point them to hers because it's awesome.
Yeah,
But where do
cool.
people find you, Alicia?
Yeah, definitely my website, Tidy Tails to Go. You can shoot us an email. All the contact information is there. And we have a Facebook and an Instagram page too. But thank you.
Cool. Well, that sounds good. Well, guys, thanks for listening to this one. Let me know what you want to hear next. And that's the pod.